So there are some general settings that you'd want to change within the system preferences of the Mac Mini that you're using. So to access the system preferences, you go up to this Apple logo in the top left corner and go down to System Preferences. And that will open up the System Preferences pane. So here you'll have a bunch of different icons to access the different settings that are within here. So we'll start at the top and sort of work down from there. So not everything will be used within here, but you will have some specific ones that you'll click into. So the first one is going to be this desktop and screensaver setting. So you click through to there, and then you can leave the desktop where it is, but if you click on screensaver up at the top here, and then come down here to where it says start after. Right now I have this set to never. It should be set to never. So if it's set to anything for any kind of duration, so if it's set to 20 minutes, I believe by default, you want to switch that off of 20 minutes to never, just so the screensaver never kicks on and the One Button Studio screen will always be present on the monitor. So once that's all set, then you can click on this icon up here to get back to the main preferences here. So the next item that you're going to look for is security and privacy here. And within here, essentially what you want to do is just come up to where it says general and disable this require password setting. This will basically make it so whenever the computer goes to sleep or the screensaver starts, if you wake the computer back up, it's going to require the admin password. Since you don't want that, you want this to be sort of easy to use, you just want to uncheck this require password box, and it'll ask you if you're sure if you want to do that. So just hit turn off screen lock, and that will turn off that setting. The other thing that you're going to want to adjust is down here where it says allow apps downloaded from, and it gives you some options here. So you want to change this. Currently it's grayed out, as you can see here. To access these settings, if you click on this lock icon in the left corner, it's going to ask you for the username and password for the computer. So you set that up at the beginning when you were setting up the Mac Mini. So I'm just going to enter my password here and unlock it. So once you've entered the correct one, it'll give you access to those buttons now. And you want to change this to allow apps downloaded from anywhere. And this is going to allow you to install applications that were downloaded not specifically from the Mac App Store. It doesn't need an app that was identified as an identified developer. So go ahead and click on anywhere, and it's going to, again, give you a warning that you're doing this. But go ahead and click on allow from anywhere. And then that's going to allow you to install specifically the PowerMate software. But for now, yeah, just leave it as that. And then once everything is set, to make sure everything stays that way, just click on the lock again, and that will lock those settings in place. So if you're running macOS Sierra or High Sierra or anything past that point, there is going to be a limit in the options that you can select from this section. So you're not actually going to have this anywhere option anymore in Sierra or High Sierra or later, because Apple has taken that out. So instead, you're just going to see App Store and Identified Developers. So if that's the case, go ahead and just click on App Store and Identified Developers, and that's okay. And then you can go ahead and lock up the computer again. So since you have App Store and Identified Developers checked, that is okay. That should still let you install the PowerMate and the Indigo software when you go to do that. The only thing that it's going to do is pop up with something that wants you to allow it to download and install. So you just want to go ahead and click on install and allow, and that will allow the Mac to actually install the software. So Apple will prompt you through all of that when it's time for doing that. And you just want to click on allow. It's going to bring you back into these settings. There'll be an allow button. You click on that and it will install OK. So the next one we're going to go over to is notifications. And notifications will allow you to turn off and on certain notifications for the computer. Essentially what we want is the absolute minimum amount of time that notifications can show up on the computer, just so they don't interrupt recording. And it's also going to take away the message when a user removes their flash drive. It'll get rid of the message that it was ejected in the corner. So to get rid of all of those things, essentially you want to turn on this Do Not Disturb feature here. And Do Not Disturb is going to do it exactly what it says, so it's not going to disturb you during the times that you set for it. So right now you can see mine is set here already, but usually that defaults to off. And you can see when I turn Do Not Disturb off, you can see there's just not ejected properly up there already, so it's notifying me of that. So what we want to do is set this Do Not Disturb. So we want to check the box to turn it on. And then what you want to do is have the time range going from 12:01 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. And what that does is within that time range, no notifications will show up in the corner or otherwise, and you'll have it not interrupting anything. So from 12:01 to 11:59 only leaves 2 minutes in between 11:59 and 12:01 where notifications can happen when nobody's probably going to be using the studio anyway. So it gives you those 2 minutes there. I've found that it's if you set it to 12:01 to, let's say, midnight, sometimes it resets the setting for whatever reason. I think it's just some glitch with the system. So 12:01 to 11:59 p.m. is good for that. So once you have that set, you can click out again to get back to the main screen. The next setting that you want to adjust is going to be Bluetooth. So you want to make sure that Bluetooth is turned off. So right now it's off. When it's on, it'll tell you. So make sure that you click on Turn Bluetooth Off to turn that off. And then we're going to go back to the main screen again. Then the next thing you want to check is under App Store. So you'll go in App Store. Usually this defaults to automatically check for updates from the App Store. Since the Mac Mini is most likely not going to be hooked up to the network anyway, you want to turn that off. And you also just want to make sure that nothing automatically updates. So just go ahead and uncheck that box. And then you can come back up here to the top. And then everything else you can pretty much leave alone. If you need to adjust the date and the time, you can. And everything else should be good. The other video covering the sort of energy saver settings and then also the users and groups startup item settings will be in those videos. This was just some general things that you'd want to have on your Mac Mini, some settings to hold to make it a little bit easier to work with the One Button Studio.